Hey, what's up, gang? My name is James White, and this is STARKADE Radio, episode 4. Thank you so much for joining us, gang. This is, for the last couple of weeks, I've left a trail of wreckage, but our star still shines bright around the STARKADE universe. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We got a little bit of a different show this week. Big shout outs to my buddy John, our lead narrative writer who joined me last week to dive into all things STARKADE story. If you haven't checked out the previous 3 episodes, look back on the STARKADE Twitter feed and you can listen to all the reruns there. And we're planning on getting all of these episodes, all the audio posted on our Discord. So if you want to pop over to our Discord and join the lovely community, a lot of which is right here, right now, jump over to discord.gg/STARKADE and join into the fray. And you can also visit us on the web. We're on the internet. We're on the information superhighway. You can see us at starkade.com and see everything that we are up to, everything that we've built, and everything that we are going to be building over the next little while. We're leading into a very exciting couple of months because, as I said on the previous episodes, we are on the road to the Legion Arena. That is the crown jewel of the STARKADE Empire, and that's really what's going to bring everything together. Everything that we've been building since January of this year, almost a full year of build, is all leading to the Legion Arena, where we can take advantage of everything, all of those pillars that we put in place. And when the game finally comes out and people can utilize all of their NFTs in the arena and kick each other's face in, that is exactly what we're aiming at. So, going to be an exciting few months. Speaking of exciting, I got a little update on recruiter profiles coming right from the source, from our CEO, Naomi. She let the team know today we are in the final stages of build of the recruiter profiles. I've been talking about these things for the last couple of weeks. And right now, what has been happening, the broad stroke, is that our front-end developer has been working on all the things that you will see with your eyeballs on our website. And our lovely back-end developer has been building the system necessary to talk to the blockchain to get that information quick. So when you log into starkade.com and you're looking at Training Ground, you're looking at your recruiter profiles, and when you're going to be playing Legion Arena, all of that information is going to be gotten from the blockchain at a quick pace because the blockchain moves slower than we'd like it to. And if there's one thing I can say about our STARKADE development team is that they are perfectionists. And the tools that we have right now, they're running a little bit slower than what those guys want them to run. So they're going to be getting that thing going real zippy, and they're in the final stages of making the front end talk to the back end. That's a weird visual, but that's exactly what they're doing right now. And we're really excited. I've seen some snippets of what Naomi's been developing, and I really, really cannot wait for these recruiter profiles to go live because they're shareable. I can send you a link, and then you can go over to my STARKADE account and look at all of the things that I have and laugh at the things that I don't have and, brag it up that you're going to kick my ass when Legion Arena launches. I know that's going to happen. I know that base is going to be all up in my grill, but, that's what's going to happen. So recruiter profiles, stay tuned. That is imminent. We're in an imminent launch stage right now. That's real exciting. So this week, like I said, we are at episode 4. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And this week, we are talking about artificially AI generated imagery, i.e. Midjourney. That's what we're talking about this week. And not so much about the NFT side of things, but I'm going to be talking about my experience with this and how this is linking up with STARKADE and the implications that it might have on STARKADE, right? And we got a little bit of a special guest. If you haven't guessed it by now, up on stage right next to me, sitting there silently, is my Hustlemania tag team partner, my creative brother-in-arms, Gavin Strange, Jam Factory. He's going to be joining me after I do a little bit of a monologue, and me and him are going to be doing some riffing on some AI stuff and how we feel about that. So it's going to be an interesting show for sure. So I'm going to jump right into this now. So I always try to be as honest as I can on these radio shows, and this is going to be no different. So a few weeks ago, we had a week in the space, and it was the week that what's his face decided to take over Twitter and decided to make a whole bunch of changes and all that stuff. We had a crypto sort of nosedive. We had some bad actors get called out on their crap, and it caused everything to sort of go in a little bit of a stale period, a little bit of a downturn. in the crypto space. I'm not one to talk about numbers, and I'm not going to name drop or any of that because that's not what these radio shows are about. I try to keep it more about the creativity and the optimism and all that kind of stuff. But it was also the week that I believe Midjourney version 4 came out, and I saw people posting some of the outputs and how brilliant they all looked, and I got really scared by that. So when you combine witnessing what AI can do, mixed with Twitter feeling like a sinking ship, and witnessing Twitter looking like a stinking ship, as a creative person in this space, that can hit you pretty hard, right? And I know I'm not the only one that has been feeling this. It's been kind of sweeping across the whole scene. But I'm an optimistic guy, but I do have my limits. But so I started looking at all of these things and started thinking, what are the things that I can do? What can I do positively to influence the way that I'm feeling? Well, number one, my lovely wife Naomi and CEO of the company took me out of town for a couple days. That was really nice. We went up to Anik and we ran around the streets of Anik, and I found a nice pub, and I went in there and I did some drawing one evening, and I made a bunch of friends in there. Shout out to the the Market Pub, no, the Market Tavern, downtown Anik, who nobody from there is listening to this right now, but shout outs to them anyway. But I started back on track. Well, I started thinking about what was in my control to make myself feel better in the midst of all these things kind of feeling like they're on fire. And Twitter, there's nothing I can do. The current owner of Twitter doesn't listen to nobody, so screw all of that. It's going to feel like a sinking ship, whether we like it or not. Number two, crypto scene. There's nothing I can do about bad actors and people squandering billions of dollars and doing all that stuff. Nothing I can do about it. AI. Now, AI, there is something I could do about that, because that is well within my grasp right now to look into it, and me and Naomi have had a lot of talks about this, and I always feel better when I know what I'm dealing with, as opposed to, sitting in an anxiety closet and chewing my fingernails off as something is progressing and making me nervous. Like, that's the wrong way to deal with it. So, kind of at the influence of a couple of my boys, my man Oniro Ant, he lives over in Greece, and I've been a fan of Oniro since 2000, 2001, and my man Fato, I think he's over in the States. I've been a fan of Fato for the exact same amount of time, 20, 22 years, and these two guys have been starting to experiment with Midjourney. I don't know if they use Midjourney specifically, but started to kind of experiment with AI. And I thought, if I'm going to feel any better about this, I got to kind of grab the bull by the horns and see what this thing is about. So that's what I did. I burned through my my 25 free outputs from Midjourney just to see what it could do, and so before I get into kind of the nuts and bolts of this, I want to refer to an article that our lead narrative writer, John, sent to Naomi and I. And this is a little excerpt that Naomi read to me a couple days ago, and it made me feel a lot better. And it reminded me that I'm not the only one feeling the kind of negative emotions or whatever when it comes to AI. So I just want to read a little excerpt from this. The article is called AI Art is Eating the World, and we need to discuss its wonders and dangers. And it's an article by Narit Wise-Blatt. Pardon me if I'm mispronouncing her name. And it's an article on Tech Dirt, if you want to check it out. It's a great article, the whole thing, and you should definitely read it. But I'm just going to read this one paragraph that really kind of resonated with me. The electronic synthesizer did not kill music, and photography did not kill painting. Instead, they catalyzed new forms of art. AI art is here to stay and can make creators more productive. Creators are going to include such models as part of their creative process. It's a partnership. AI can serve as a starting point, a sketch tool that provides suggestions, and the creator will improve it further. And that really resonated with me, because that is sort of how, I'm a process guy. Like, I love talking about my process and improving my process and analyzing my process. I like to talk to other people about their creative process. My man Gavin Strange, who's up here right now, like we talk about creative process a lot on stage when we're doing our stage shows. And that's how I decided to approach AI image generation. Is I want to see how I can use this new tool in my creative process, because way back in the day, Photoshop didn't kill drawing. And I'm certain this is not a thing that's going to kill creativity in any means. It's just a new thing that we can interact with should we want to. And I would rather interact with it to kind of dispel some of the anxiety that I have around it. So that's exactly what I started doing. I started experimenting. I made a little secret channel in the Signalnoise Discord, and I started experimenting with the Midjourney bot. Now I know that my outputs are being spit out some other damn place in like the Midjourney gallery, and everybody can see them in my prompts and stuff. And honestly, I don't give a damn about that. People can look at my prompts. I'm not one that's going to be like, they're stealing my prompts, yo. I don't I don't give a crap. It doesn't matter. They're just words, and people could guess them anyway, probably. But what I learned initially, like right off the bat from AI art generation, is that by the way, shout outs to Jack, one of our community consultants. She mentioned that we shouldn't refer to it as AI art. We should refer to it as AI generated imagery, and that is 100% right. So I'm going to refer to it as AI generated imagery, which is a mouthful. But until we got something better, I'm going to refer to it as that because that makes more sense. So I made this little secret room, or secret channel in my Discord, started experimenting with the prompts to see what it'll spit out. And one thing that I quickly learned was that it's not as easy as people might think that it is. You really got to experiment with your prompts and your words and how you phrase things and the sentences that you use in order to yield the results that you want, right? So I had to learn that, and I had a lot of going back and forth, and a lot of me like staring at the outputs, going, "Why are people making stuff that looks better, and why can't I do this?" So you start experimenting with different words, and you find a visual style or a visual output that you enjoy. And for me, what I was trying to do was describe my style of artwork to Midjourney to get outputs that resembled my artwork. And I'm talking right down to putting Signalnoise as one of the prompts in literally everything that I do. Signalnoise and STARKADE both have a very specific style, and I want that style to be residual in all of the outputs that I do. So trying to explain my art to the engine to get those results that I want it's more so about my artwork and my style than it is me trying to make a piece of art that looks like, some other artist like Roger Dean or Shepard Fairey or something like that. Like, I'm not interested in that. And I know that's a large part of the conversation is this art generator scrapes styles from other artists. And that is a 100% valid argument and conversation to be had when it comes to this. It's very weird. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to teach this damn thing to make art like me, but better. And what ideas might come out of that, right? What I'm also trying to do is avoid copyright. And again, this is a big part of the conversation. But when I say I'm trying to avoid copyright, I'm kind of trying to avoid copyright. But what I'm doing is I'm not trying to tell the generator to make something in the style of another artist. I think that's the wrong territory to be treading in. I will throw in something. I'm a big Masters of the Universe fan, that's no secret. I'll throw He-Man into the mix, right? And so I'll throw He-Man in there, and then a certain style comes out. And a certain kind of character, if it's a character-based thing I'm looking for, a certain kind of character comes out when you put He-Man into the mix. And then I'll say He-Man with black hair. And then it'll just be a big muscular guy with long hair, but it's black. So it doesn't really look like He-Man. Or I'll say He-Man in a leather jacket. Now, if you're experimenting with Midjourney, definitely try that because the results are hilarious. He looks like Vince Neil from Motley Crue. It's great. So I'll put He-Man wearing a leather jacket with black hair. And suddenly it doesn't look like He-Man. The prompt is there, but it doesn't look like He-Man. That's the area that I'm most interested in. I did the same with like Rinsler from Tron. I'll say Rinsler wearing a leather jacket, holding a chainsaw or something like that. And the outputs don't resemble Rinsler at all, but the character might have like a glass helmet on. It's interesting. It's interesting to see how the engine can interpret these words and mix them up in different ways. And again, I'm always putting STARKADE and Signalnoise in there because I want that residual effect. I want my artwork to be in there. So all of these things happening, and I'm having a good time experimenting with it, but it's like having a sidekick. It's like having a very intimidating sidekick, right? Batman and Robin, it's like Robin is way better at everything than Batman is. That's what experimenting with AI feels like because, I'm an artist. I enjoy the stuff that I make, but I put those prompts into AI and it comes back and I'm like, damn, I wish I could paint like that, but that's interesting because it is visualizing the things that I'm giving it. But it is very intimidating, and I'm not going to lie, it is very scary. This radio show isn't pro AI at all. This is me having a conversation with this technology and sharing it with all of you, because I don't know where this technology fits into my creative process yet. But the only way that I can figure that out is to experiment with it. And it's very weird and it's very complex. And, AI generated imagery right now brings with it the same reaction to a lot of artists and designers that the word or phrase NFT, I'm doing air quotes, I just did air quotes, but you can't see me do air quotes, NFT has with other artists. As soon as you say NFT, a lot of artists and designers will have their fingers in their ears. They're like, I don't want to hear that, blah, blah, blah. They don't know anything about it. And that's fine. That is 100% fine. But I would rather learn about things in order to form an informed opinion. That's just me, but that's how I want it. That's how I go about things. And AI kind of brings with it that same level of fingers in the ears with a lot of artists and designers for very good reason. For very good reason, because this crap is really scary. It's really intimidating. It's nervous. I felt 3 weeks ago, I felt like I was obsolete. I felt like who would hire me to do anything now if they can just plug in words to this? But I maintain, now this is just my opinion or my thoughts or my outlook on this whole topic. I do feel or believe that if you wield the power of Blender or Illustrator or Photoshop, if you have those weapons at your disposal and you are fluent in using them, then AI is going to be more powerful in your hands than it would be in somebody that doesn't wield those things. Do you know what I mean? Because AI can't invent creativity. That comes from the human brain. At the moment, it can't anyway. We're not at Skynet levels, folks, but it can't invent that kind of stuff. And anything that an AI engine can serve someone when they have knowledge of Blender or Photoshop, it's going to enhance that method of creating art. So that's what I believe. And that's the outlook. That's the optimistic viewpoint that I would like to have when it comes to AI. It is still a more powerful weapon in the hands of a creative person. That's what I believe. Whether that's true or not in 6 months, who knows. But now, that was a long diatribe. Now we're 20 minutes into this episode, but I want to loop this into STARKADE now. Now, anybody that's here right now from STARKADE server, I see a lot of you in here. Shouts to Mar1, Bass, Electric Toad, Shredda, Jenna, Tiny Universe, Monkey, Jack's here, Robert, DC, all the STARKADE crew. Pardon me if I missed any of you guys. Thank you very much for being here. But how does this wrap into STARKADE? Well, if you're here now and you're on the STARKADE Discord, you would have caught the announcement that just went out. When I started to experiment with AI a couple of weeks ago, this started a big conversation with the STARKADE team. And, I was wondering, how can AI be used not so much solely for my creation of STARKADE artwork, but how can the community use this? Because that's around the time I discovered that you can install the damn Midjourney bot on your server. And, me and Robert started talking about it. And we thought, and Robert brought up the threaded system of you can create specific threads within a channel that can be topic specific. So what we did was we installed the Midjourney bot on the STARKADE Discord. And we're opening it up to members of our community to imagine what they think specific aspects of the STARKADE universe look like. Because as all of you know, I'm the sole artist in STARKADE. Like anything art-wise that comes out of STARKADE is through my Cintiq or my drawings or my pens or whatever. But because of that, I have an ever-growing list of stuff that I need to illustrate, not to mention imagining the entire world and all the landscapes and creatures and people that inhabit this world. So if we can start imagining this together using AI, that helps me generate ideas. Actually, let me rephrase that. The community can help me generate ideas on what these things may look like. Now, I would never use anything one-to-one. I'll be illustrating everything. But there are things out there in AI land through the prompts that our community members can put into that bot that I might not have thought of. There is absolutely 100% certainty that there's a bunch of things that I never thought of that would be really dope to include in the STARKADE universe, design-wise. And we won't know those until we have this conversation. So AI is a great method of rapid prototyping imagery. Also, I've always wanted to encourage the STARKADE community to make art that's STARKADE related, but some people aren't comfortable with how they draw or the digital art that they make. And all of that is totally fine. If you're not comfortable with the kind of art, if it's not to the level that you would prefer publicly, installing the AI bot allows you to put in prompts and create art with everybody else. So there's a certain level of comfort in there, which I really enjoy. So we set this thing up. It's rolling right now. If you pop in, we have 4 channels set up. Big thanks to Robert. Big shouts. We have a general channel where you can work on anything STARKADE related. You can pump in some landscapes, some locations that you know from John's wonderful writing for the Lost Fighters arc or the Warehouse Shipment 1 arc, story arc. You can explore the world. You can see what does Warren Lake actually look like? What does the Infernal Swamp look like? You can explore those in the general channel. We have a channel specifically designed for the Dismal Pug, one of our lead creatures in the Lost Fighters story arc. And what does a Dismal Pug look like? You know, Pinsky and Void Seeker. Those guys have been experimenting with AI-generated imagery, and those guys have already been diving into. I think it was you, Pinsky, that did some Dismal Pug images that blew my mind right off my butt a couple of weeks ago. So we have a channel specifically made for the Dismal Pug. That was a very popular creature. We have a location, the Stonebrig military base. Stonebrig is where our megastar Cold-Blooded Joe is from. And you can imagine, what does the Stonebrig military base look like? And we want to see what you would imagine it looking like. And we also have, finally, a channel called Your Fighters, where you can put in a link. By the way, a little tip. You can put in a link to an image anywhere on the internet. You can plug that in as one of your prompts in the bot, in Your Fighters, for example. If you go over to STARKADE.com, connect your wallet, go to your dashboard, pluck the link from one of your fighters, plop it into the prompts, and then put in the suggested prompts, Signalnoise, STARKADE, Synthwave, Cyberpunk, and Neon. That'll keep everything on brand. It'll all look properly. It'll all look proper. And then output it, and the engine will reimagine what your fighter looks like. Like, how cool is that? And we just had to put that channel in there. So in the future, we're going to have more channels that are going to be added. Again, shouts to Robert. And we're going to explore more creatures, more locations, more specific items within the STARKADE universe, and maybe specific events that happen within the STARKADE universe. And we want to see how our community would imagine those things using the Midjourney bot. So really cool, and hopefully it will encourage people to get a little bit more comfortable with AI. So it'll demystify a lot of things, and it'll be really, really fun to see everybody's output. I am so looking forward to looking through that. We also set up, I believe, a curated gallery, and I'll be the person governing that, and I'm going to be going through the outputs for all of the upscaled outputs that people do, and I'll be grabbing the ones that I like and featuring them in the curated gallery, which I cannot wait to do and give everybody their due credit. So check out the announcement on the Discord, discord.gg/STARKADE. Check out the guidelines and how we're going to be running this thing. Check out the sample prompts, and I can't wait to see what you create using this thing. So now, that was, 25 minutes, 26 minutes. Gavin Strange has been patiently waiting. If you just joined us a little while ago, Gavin Strange is my Hustle Mania tag team partner. Me and him did a big talk on the offstage in Barcelona a million years ago, 2018, I believe it was. And my creative brother in arms, me and Gav have known each other since way back when we were Flickr babies, back in 2008 or something like that. And Gav is here to Gav is gracious enough to join me on stage and discuss some of this AI stuff. And because I wanted to we've had a lot of discussions about this, and we have a little DM going on the side. Big shouts to our XO brethren. And yeah, we're here to talk about AI. And I would rather not just this be a soliloquy. Is that what it's called? I'd rather it be a conversation. So, yo, Gav, what's up, buddy? If you want to come up on stage here.
James, Signalnoise, White.
How's it going, buddy?
Hello. I'm all right, Sausage. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for taking time into your busy day. Gav is also a director at the mighty Aardman Animation. So his time, he is like 300 pounds an hour to get him on this Twitter Spaces. So thank you so much for being here,
Yeah,
man.
I'm going to send my invoice in, actually. My invoice, I'll get it typed up and
Awesome,
send it
yeah.
over. No, thanks for having me, mate. Thanks for having me. And to be honest, it's really funny because normally me and you are like brothers in arms in terms of positivity, and we always look at everything with positivity. But I think I'm not in the other camp, and it's not like you say, you're not professing anything about AI. You're enthusiastically talking about your experience with it. And so the first huge flag and caveat from myself is I have not used AI generators or Midjourney or any of them at all myself. I've obviously seen the fun stuff you've been making, and I've seen the fun stuff that that others have been making. But I'm going to be cautionary about it, if I'm totally honest. And there's a few reasons why. And obviously, I can't be I can't profess to know much about it without using it myself. But there's a few reasons why. I think one of them, in the industry that I'm in, as a director, I work with predominantly a lot of concept artists and visual artists, especially if I'm making a film or a game or whatever it might be. Those concept artists, I just have like such reverence for them. And so my first thought when I started seeing this stuff was, oh, but my friends aren't going to have jobs anymore. I kind of really kind of felt a pang of worry, really, seeing the quality of stuff that came out there. So that was like a first feeling. But as you've expressed there, James, there are many, many ways to use these tools. And that quote that you quoted was really fascinating. But I'm not sure I agree with that person's quote, but particularly when she says about synthesizers, when synthesizers hit the world of music. But the thing is with synthesization is using sound waves and signals to and combine them to synthesize a new sound from like the base elements of electronic music. Whereas I don't think that's what the AI generated art is. It has to work on what already exists. I think this is more akin to, if people are of a certain age, you may remember the mighty DJ Shadow from the early 2000s. And he was the first person to create a whole album based purely around samples. I feel like it's possibly more like that. And there was uproar then. There was like, but he's not made the music. But he did. He took this insane amount of crate digging, really, digging around the musty basements of LA based record stores and built this entire record with thousands of samples. Yes, he didn't make anything new, but he arranged it in a way. And we're talking from, like a 1 second clip looped and stretched versus, a whole 20 seconds of a piece of music. So this is the thing I'm still trying to process where it sits to make, I don't know, to logically understand its applications. But yeah, I mean, how did you feel, James, from when you first like heard about it versus then really playing with yourself? Because there must have been a change in that feeling.
Did you just ask me when I started playing with myself?
I did ask you, and then my Siri Watch just went, "What do you mean?" Yes, when did you first start playing with yourself?
Yeah, let's change. Let's take it. That was a wild pivot, man. Well, a couple of things. Number one, synthesization is a real good, like 10-pound word. Well done on that one. But also, Gav, this, like so many of the things that you said, is why you are the perfect guest to talk to about this stuff. I didn't want you coming on here just because I think like, oh, Gav will agree with me. We're pals. It's because this is such a complex. It's a complex topic and it's a complex technology, and it's challenging a lot of not only how we make art, but what we believe art is in terms of personal and commercial. So you're the perfect person to talk about this because we've known each other for a long time. It's a big and scary thing, but also your experience at Aardman. Exactly right. You work with some of the most brilliant concept artists in the world, debatably, and I can understand, like, if a contest or a concept artist sees what this thing can do, I can understand them, filling their pants, because it's a very big and very scary thing. So, um, I very much respect your thoughts on this stuff. And I said this, I should have said this earlier, and I should have been made clear. Like, this show isn't pro AI, and it's not anti AI either. It is a conversation, because I'm trying to figure this out. And I don't know where it's going to end up, honestly. So anyway, thank you very much for your thoughts, and your comparison to DJ Shadow was awesome. That is very much it. And when that album landed, I remember when it landed, and I remember it caused a giant debate as well, from what I remember. Like, people saying, "Is this music? It's not music. Yes, it is. It's a new thing." Blah blah blah. And that does echo very very closely to AI. The difference is, I suppose, DJ Shadow can't spit out an album in 45 seconds the way the way that AI can spit out imagery. So to wrap all the way around to your question, my first reaction, I believe it played out in real time with all of us in the XO chat. And again, big shout outs to Jay, Genuine Human. Big shout outs to our buddy Griff and everybody at Skinner Corp. Chris Skinner, our XO brethren, our very, very talented artist friends who we talk to a lot about this exact kind of stuff. And that's where we vent a lot of our anxiety surrounding it as well. So the first time I saw it, I believe it was something on Twitter that somebody posted, and I saw it and I was like, wait, what is AI art, or AI generated imagery? Like, I didn't even know what that was. And then people were complaining about, you can put, all you do is type in some words and it spits out a thing, and that's not art and whatever. So I kind of was introduced to it through the argument, as is how Twitter works. I didn't understand it at the beginning. And then through the XO chat, I think it might have been Chris talking about it. Chris seems to be the smartest out of all of us. He has his finger on the pulse, that fella. But I think he was talking about AI art. And when he kind of explained it and what it does, initially I wasn't worried. And I think it might have been, you could probably dig up a tweet that I put out on Signalnoise. Like, it's like, oh, this isn't going to create, like, is until like this thing can create something as sharp as I can illustrate it. Like, it's not going to go anywhere. It's always going to be sloppy. It's always going to be messy. It'll never figure out how to illustrate hands, just like me. But I was kind of passive about it. And it wasn't until about 3 weeks ago that I got really freaked out. And, I don't want to point the finger at Pinsky on the STARKADE Discord, but when he posted that dismal pug, I was like, kind of crap my pants a little bit. It's like, that is AI generated. Like, I'm dead meat. I was really freaked out by it, honestly, man. Like, have you talked to anybody, Gav, at I mean, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but have you talked to anybody at Aardman, i.e., like any of the concept artists, about their thoughts on what it is or where it's going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, like I say, I'm not speaking for Armin. I'm speaking personally today. But like my friends who are in the industry, I've talked to them, and they're really curious about it, as in, concept artists in particular, because often, the advantages, I think, as we were discussing, that it could give you, especially if you're a commercial concept artist, perhaps, and you've got deadlines. So much of possibly the backbone is I know of a few friends, build rough geometry in Blender or Cinema 4D to give you a bit of a shape. Why build that from scratch if you're like, okay, well, a mountain is roughly that size, and then the trees are that size. If you can sort of block out some helpful structure, shall we say, a framework, then it just helps you progress with what you're doing, because then you finesse and you paint and you draw and you do whatever it is in the next stage of your creative process. So I think from my friends that I have spoken to, it's very much seeing it as that. It helps you maybe get a framework down, or maybe iterate through a few ideas quickly to get you closer to where you want to be, which totally feel like that sounds fantastic, and that sounds exciting and engaging. I think my only personal worry is that you can pull on anyone else's work that's ever, it only has power because of people's hard work to begin with. I mean, this is the thing though, isn't it? As soon as you start unpicking that thread, that's just true of just all creative anything, because we get into the area of, well, if you use a digital camera, you're cheating, you should use a film camera. There's always these bloody arguments that really are so reductive and they don't help anyone. You know, everything always progresses more. I think perhaps just the AI thing has been such a leap so quickly. You know, and when it first came up, because it's AI, it's learning all the time, and the more people use it, the more people, you know, the more it is fed, the better it gets. So we've all just seen the quality jump in terms of its outputs within weeks, which is insane. You know, if you're talking about normal technology, you're in 5, 6, 7 year, you know, sort of hardware cycles and software cycles for things to get better. But this is literally growing at such an insane rate that's the bit that I'm fearful of. Why am I even fearful? I don't know. I don't know. Actually, I do know. I do know. Okay, so I do have a point. And we've spoken about this, James. The world is such a hard place right now for everyone, every single person on the planet. I mean, inevitably it's hard anyway because the sun is dying, and one day everything that we all know and love will be incinerated as the sun expands and you know, eviscerates our planet. So that's always a worry. But then, in a slightly closer worry, there is the fact that the world is tough. You know, the cost of living crisis is affecting everybody. It's so hard right now to be a human and to pay your bills, let alone be a creative human, where the market, the industry, is all over the place. You know, if you're a commercial artist, perhaps, you know, things are up, things are down, because we're hitting another recession again. So at times it feels like the AI side of things is yet another thing to be fearful of and to be worried about when you're trying to stay positive, happy, and creative and motivated. But again, that's why obviously it can also be flipped as a positive to use it as a tool and to go forward. So, yeah, as you can tell, I don't really have a stance, and I don't have to have a stance. No one has to have a stance. No, you know, you don't have to always have an opinion, but it's just I'm in this duality of the highs and the lows and the possibilities and the good things and the bad things. You know, does that make sense? I don't know.
No, it totally does, Gav. Yeah, yeah, and you're absolutely right about like we're things are in all the ways that you mentioned, things are bleak. Things are looking bleak in a lot of different ways. And, you know, like humanity goes up and down. You know, I know in the 70s, they kind of hit the skids as well. And, you know, in a lot of ways with the economy and whatever, crime, whatever. But it does feel like there's a lot of things happening right now. And it's, especially on the tail end of COVID, if AI was a thing that happened in 3 years, it might be, you know, when hopefully things are better, hopefully, it might be something that's an easier pill to swallow. But because there's a lot of other things happening, it's like, oh, great. Now we have this other thing that we have to worry about. Right. So I totally get where you're coming from. And when you say fearful, I think that was your word, fearful. Like, I totally get that because that is exactly where I am. Because it took such a massive leap, like you said, in, oh my God, 6 months. It's insane. Like, I have outputs that I did 6 months ago and they look sloppy as hell compared to the ones that I did this morning. It's insane the technological advance that they did, the system has managed to do. And what I'm trying to figure out personally, and this is what I'm struggling in, this is what I'm scared of. When I plug in a bunch of prompts and it gives me an art piece that I like, how is it that I use that? Is it like, do I rebuild it? Like, it looks so good and looks the way that I really want it. Do I rebuild it and just fix the hand? Do I rebuild it and put a Signalnoise logo on a character's shoulder? Do I just edit the output that it gives me? You know, I don't know how to interact with the outputs yet. I know there's a way of doing it, but I'm not sure how that works. And I know a lot of us are figuring that out right now. You know, like I said earlier, my man Aniro Ant is here in the audience right now. He's experimenting. His work is beautiful, by the way. Definitely go over to his Twitter and check out what he's doing. He's experimenting with AI as well. Another guy that I know on Twitter, Polygon, he's experimenting and doing some amazing things. My man Fato, like I said earlier, yeah, over on his Instagram, he is just blowing my mind, some of the stuff he's doing with AI, but he's not using the outputs one to one. He's taking those outputs and editing them, remixing them into something that is very impressive, including typography, but every artist, I think, has to figure out where the AI stops and where they begin. It's Daft Punk, man. It's human robot. You got to figure out where the middle point is and where the overlap is. and every artist has to do that for himself. I don't know where that is for me personally yet. I really have no idea, and that scares the hell out of me. And it's like I said earlier, it's like Robin being cooler than Batman. Like how do you interact with that, man? Just send Robin in, and he'll get the Joker. You don't have to do anything, right? So anyway, that was my entire point. Sorry, I had a gap there. I forgot my train of thought there. But yeah, it's complex, Gav, and that's why I'm happy you're here to talk to me about this stuff. Do you think you at some point will kind of tinker with it a little bit, or do you think that it's something that you're kind of not really kind of looking to explore at all?
I think in my own work, like my own personal work, I think is often quite clean and quite neat. And obviously, like you say, James, we met on Flickr, and my work is very graphic and vector. And then since then, I've kind of moved into 3D, but it's still always quite neat. So I think in terms of that, it doesn't interest me in trying. But what it does interest me is again in kind of directing stuff that's more collaborative, to get an idea across quickly, to iterate, and to create mood images. Perhaps I could definitely see massive value in looking at sort of color scripts and key visuals. And again, I'm not, I wouldn't be, I couldn't see myself creating it as here's a finished piece of work. It's here's a image or a series of images to help us get to the next step. So concepting, mood images, reference, especially if it sounds like you can really start feed this into very specific things. And if the reference doesn't exist, like you've said, if it's like, oh, imagine He-Man, but in so and so, and if that doesn't exist, you can make it exist. And if that thing that is generated then lets you have a conversation with, if it's yourself, if you're creating that piece of work, you've got a great reference and starting point. Or if you're desperately trying to get a mad idea across to someone, what a better way than creating it and having it there. So I think actually, yeah, I just need to find the right the right use for it. And I suppose it also is falls into that argument when people can still be snippy about this now of using reference. Oh, you're using reference, that's cheating. What are you insane? Are you high? What? No, of
It's
course it's
insane.
not.
Yeah,
Like,
it's insane.
especially with hand, it's like, have you ever drawn a hand, you psychopath? No one can draw hands. It's awful. Of course you need reference. Like, that's the same as like saying to an animator, "Oh, don't have that mirror on your desk." No, 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 no. You have to. You have to suffer, and you have to be a martyr to create this. So there's definitely a line, a connection, I think, of that sort of, no, to be a true artiste, you must suffer. And like I say, I don't think I was having arguments there, but my stances, I think, fall away quite quickly, because yeah, in theory, using a computer is cheating. Then why don't I do everything by hand? Using a pencil is cheating. Why don't I just directly chisel a piece of rock? What? I know, no. Why don't I just go set something on fire, take the charcoal? That's the only implement I can use. If I even compressed it and put it in a pencil, that's cheating. So it's like you can extrapolate these things quite quickly and go, oh yeah, okay, everything's a cheat, everything's a tool, and you become so obsessed about the process and not about actually enjoying making something. So yeah, I think it's just cautionary, isn't it? That's the only thing. It's new, it's fast. I think that's a thing. If the speed wasn't as the speed it's getting better wasn't a thing. It's almost like, and I guess this is why it plays into the crypto scene as well. Things move quickly, and it's hard to hang on for dear life. So yeah, it's kind of it's all a bit of a whirlwind, isn't it? I think that's why it's hard to stay on track.
Yeah, it is, man. And I would say impossible to hang on that things move as quickly as this. That was a great whole segment. I want to make a clip of that, everything you just said, because it was hilarious. I had to mute it like a lot because I was laughing. But there's one thing, and this kind of plays into what you were saying about sort of what we, or how we create art and that kind of thing. And I love the idea of, like, we should all be reading books. We shouldn't be on the internet. Like, and it's, as soon as you kind of pull the thread of that argument, it unravels really, really quickly in terms of how we make art and what was acceptable at any point in time. When Photoshop came around in the early 90s, closely followed by the internet, there was all kinds of people from the older method of making art, saying like, no, you should be painting, you shouldn't be using Photoshop, and you should be buying magazines, you shouldn't be reading stuff in a news group or whatever. But then those things become commonplace and they find their home. Will AI do that? I have no idea. Maybe there'll be a big class action lawsuit and they'll all be sued into oblivion, and then we'll have no AI forever. I don't think that'll work. I don't think that'll happen. But it could. Who knows? But the way that we create art, and this is a conversation that I had with Naomi not long ago, and I'll use me as the example. I won't put words in your mouth, Gav. But when I am not shy about telling people who or what I'm influenced by. If you look at any piece of my art, it's 1980s, it's Masters of the Universe, it's Image Comics, it's Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, it's wrestling. Well, that's about it, really. So if you take any of those things and you plop them into a blender and then pour a nice glass of Signalnoise out, that's what it is, right? So when I'm creating art, all of those influences are in my head. So I'll take like the jetpack from the Rocketeer and this armor from, Sub-Zero or whatever, and I'll combine them into a character that doesn't look like either of those things, but is uniquely mine. So when I started, well, not maybe uniquely mine, but it's a new thing anyway. But when I started experimenting with AI, I kind of saw it as working the same way as I make art. Now, the reason I say I'm only speaking from my experience is because I'm not going to say that all artists work the same way, where they're a combination of all of their influences. I would say 9 out of 10 are, but not all, and I'm not one to believe that creativity happens in a vacuum. Like you can just come out with something completely unique and not be influenced by anything or anyone. I think that's kind of impossible. I think art is more of an incremental thing that builds over time, and we're all kind of a result of our influences in some way. It's all in there. So when I started experimenting with AI, that's what I quickly noticed, that this thing is piecing together art sort of better than the way I could, but it's piecing together art in the way that I create art and the way that I move through my process. It's very similar. So once I learned that, again, this is my personal method of using AI, that's what I started describing. I would start giving it my influences, not saying do something in the style of Shepard Fairey, for example. I would try to describe the thing using verbs and nouns of what I wanted it to do without referencing directly. Because if you don't reference directly, it's going to come out with something that's detached from that original source material, preferably. So, but it's a sticky situation, isn't it? Because if everybody using AI used it honestly, there wouldn't be any problems. But we're in a place where bad actors are in the door first, and they're just going to start making stuff based on the work of specific artists, giving prompts with that specific artist name, and that's where we have a lot of these problems. Well, plus, not to mention the side that the AI is built to do exactly that. That's also a big problem. So, I don't know what my overall point was there. It's probably that AI is working the same way as my creative process in a way. But again, to loop back what I said before, I don't know how to use those outputs. I don't know what those outputs mean yet. Do I edit them? Do I recreate them or rebuild them in Illustrator and Photoshop? I really don't know. So it's really strange. It's really strange to sort out your kind of creative process in that way. I didn't really have a follow-up.
It's such a new tool as well, isn't it? It's really kind of hit us quite quickly as well. So to sort of find a little space for it in your little pencil case, it's kind of quite a difficult thing to do. I would love to imagine you with a really little pencil case. Really delicate. Actually, I say it'd be delicate. It'd have like black and chrome spikes on it, and it'd be full of like massive pens and.
Oh, it's completely impractical, dude. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, just talking to you now has really made me think, no, I should give it a pop. And actually, yeah, I do think that using it as reference and using it to explore ideas and jumping off points would be incredibly useful, actually, especially if you're, if it's related to commercial creativity and you do have time constraints. But then obviously I guess that is where the negative can jump, because then all it takes is a bad actor to whip something up and then sell it as their own creation, and they maybe get hired based on, oh, this is your work, and actually it's not. They have just been taking other people's work. That's that's where it gets tricky. But again, I think you could probably extrapolate that as well and say, well, when Photoshop came out, were people not just scanning the work of other artists and sticking them together and then saying, oh, I can do that? And, you know, there's always going to be charlatans depending on whatever the mediums and techniques and tools are out there, aren't they? So it's just a case of people being honest, you know, as to how things were generated, perhaps. I don't know. It sounds like you're gonna then have to police people, don't you? But I know, I think most people, I don't know. I'm not even going to speak for the people. I'm just I'm unsure how I'm gonna use it for now. But
yeah.
It's
there was one big thing that happened. I don't know. It was about a month ago or whatever. It was some big news publication or whatever. Maybe the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, or something like that. They used an AI generated image as like their lead image for one of their articles or something. And and I think it was even credited as like created by Midjourney or whatever. And they published this thing like one for one in their paper or something. And this is me being kind of a jerk here a little bit, but and the whole argument was like, oh, this is it's taking artists and designers sort of out of the equation and whatever, and to a degree, yeah, like it sort of is. But the thing from my experience is that newspapers and magazines have been taking advantage of the creative industry for goddamn decades. It's like no big loss, man. It's like you go and find other work. Like those publications don't pay like nearly as much as people assume that they might. It's just like if they want to use AI, like whatever. Water flows the path of least resistance, and they are definitely the water in that equation.
No, that is a very good point. Yeah, I think the heady days of magazine features and newspaper spreads paying the big bucks, I think they are long behind us.
Yeah, I think that would have been back in the Wall Street days of like the Michael Douglas Gordon Gekko days when like magazine illustrators were like hailed as these kings of New York or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, slightly different time now. Yeah, but that's really interesting, isn't it? That was putting it out there and it credited as Midjourney. Do you know that was the image like actually you could tell it was pulled from other people's work? I suppose that's the thing. It has to work like that, right? Can you feed it your own imagery and just tell it to make something based on your own creations, or will it always just scour whatever it can find to create something for you?
Yeah, one of the prompts that you can include is actually an image link to a piece of your art. But the problem is you can put any link in there. So I can go to Roger Dean's website, one of my favorite artists, and pluck an image link from one of his and plop it in there, right? So I don't know, like the image I saw was of a former president who shall not be named, but it was an image of him and it was an article about him or whatever. I don't think it was a promise or a very flattering article, but I couldn't peg if it was based on an actual like artist's work, and that personally, that's where I draw the line. Like I don't want to plug in, like I'm not going to go and put in like Gavin Strange Jam Factory as one of my prompts, because I feel dirty when I do that. That's just me. That's my opinion on that kind of stuff. But you can't stop magazines and newspapers from doing that. And I guess that's an important part of the whole conversation. Like, are these AI generators, the companies that run them, will they in the future be putting like terms or prompts that you can't use? I assume they have some kind of a, nudity thing, or some kind of like you can't do anything that's horribly like racist or vulgar or something like that. I assume they do have some sort of guidelines in place, but I don't know if that's just them saying don't do that, or do they actually program it in? So if they do program it in, we might get to a point in the future where artist names will be put on it. But how do you police that again? And how long is that list going to be, right? Like, God knows.
Yeah, no, I think just it's almost like it feels like it's probably self-policing, doesn't it? People will you would naturally say, well, no, I didn't make that. It was, made using AI with other people's this and that. I think, again, I would say that's the right thing to do, because if you didn't create the source, especially if it's heavily, so, oh, those trees are from so-and-so artist, on that building's from so-and-so's artist, you didn't create that. I think when it's smaller building blocks, I think that's okay. I don't know, man. It feels such eggshelly just talking about it, really. But I just know I come from it from a place of really loving and respecting and admiring people's work that they created from scratch, and just with a little bit of trepidation. That's probably it. Not fear, trepidation as to how
That's
this
good.
thing gets used.
It's another one of those 10-pound words you like throwing around, man.
That's how I win the big bucks on Scrabble, mate.
Oh man. Well, listen, Gav, we try to cap these things at about an hour, and it is 3:59. How about that? So, listen, do you have any shout outs or plugs? Where can people find you on the internet before I wrap this joint up?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, you can find me at Jam Factory on the internet. My website is jam-factory.com. I've got a little store on there for some little odds and sods. But other than that, just my shout out is to be kind to one another.
So wholesome. So wholesome. So listen, Gav, just 1 sec. I'm going to do the little wrap up here, and then we'll finalize and button this thing down for the masses. Everybody here, thank you so much for tuning in to STARKADE Radio episode 4. We've been talking about AI and Midjourney, and talking about all the trepidations and the synthesizations thereabouts. And big thanks to my buddy Gavin Strange, Jam Factory, for being here. If you want to drop by the STARKADE Discord and hang out with the lovely community that we have going on over there, they are all over making generated imagery right now. I popped over there and saw the number of messages in those new channels. Thank you so much for checking that out, gang. Drop by the Discord at discord.gg/STARKADE. Big shouts to all the STARKADians that are listening into this. And if you want to get involved, pop over to STARKADE.com, look through our fighter directory. You can grab a fighter off the secondary, probably on OpenSea, and connect your wallet to our website, check out your dashboard, equip your fighter, get them into training, and start earning credits ahead of the big Legion Arena that's going to be upcoming in the next couple of months. And STARKADE.com, if I haven't mentioned our website. So I think we're going to be on next week. I got to come up with a topic on what the next radio show will be about, but I will keep everybody posted on that. Again, everybody that's here, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to two art dudes talk about their fears of computers. And once again, big thanks to Gavin Strange, Jam Factory, for coming up and joining me on this, because originally I was just going to do a monologue, but I don't want everybody just getting one side of this thing. And Gav, as I said, you were the perfect guest to have on this, because I wanted to hear the kind of some of the broader conversation on this. And being that you work where you work, I knew that you would have some thoughts on this. So and thoughtful thoughts. You have very thoughtful thoughts of trepidation. So big thanks for being here, Gav. Big thanks to everybody for joining us. And yeah, man, everyone, stay rad. Give him a shout, Gav.
Thanks, everyone. Ta-ta.
Thanks, gang. See you soon.